It's easy to feel powerless right now with all the chaos in the world. And this week's message from Isla, the mother of creation, is letting us know that we are anything but. That she has for us in this message a wonderful way of understanding who we really are in a way that can help us to resolve our fear, especially right now when there's so much weirdness going on in the world and so much uncertainty. And I think it's also, as we're hearing about more and more things where it feels like there's so much corruption, there's so many systems and organizations and people who seem to have so much more control over the world and who may not be doing things that are in your highest and best good. And this message from Isla today, I think, helps to put all of that into perspective and to put the control over your life back in your own hands. So, welcome back to my channel. I am so glad you are here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm always really, really excited to share these messages with you because I get so much more out of them when we do. And for anyone who's new, welcome. My name is Ann Tucker. I am a trance channel. I channel Isla, who is the mother of creation. She's the mother of all souls, as well as the angels. And I do that by going into a deep meditative trance state. And then I open up from that trance state and bring in either Isla or the angels. So, and I bring in healing, I bring in information, which I share with you guys on YouTube. So, so this week's message, I will share the original message with you. The channeling I did actually very early this morning because I was flying yesterday. I usually channel on Thursdays, but I channeled it early this morning. And then afterwards, we will break it down. And even though I feel like the message is beautifully clear this week, but there's always so much more that we can get from it. When we talk it through, I feel like we integrate it at a much deeper level. So I encourage you to stay around for the breakdown afterwards. So, and while we are on the subject of healing our fear, releasing our fear, I want to invite you to join me in Peace Bathing. Peace Bathing is an amazing healing program that I run with the angels. The angels are, I go into trance, I bring them through, and they speak directly to you. They lead us through a gorgeous guided meditation, which is a healing meditation, and they raise us up into the vibration of peace. And that is a state where our energy field is much easier to work with. And it's different every single month, but you can think of it as so Peace Bathing happens once a month. And the idea is that we're meant to use that meditation all month long. So, and it's meant to be part of your regular ongoing healing practice. So if you do not have a regular ongoing healing practice, this is a really, really wonderful, affordable, and inspiring way to do it. So what you do is you take that, if you can come live, that's great. If you can't, that's okay too. It still works. The meditation still works. The healing still works. So you then, as you go through the month, you use that healing meditation again and again and again. The idea is you go out into the world and wherever you get triggered, whatever comes up, whenever you're feeling anything less than awesome, you bring it into your meditation and you bring that forward and the angels will help you move through it. So it's a super wonderful way to keep your field clear, to keep you feeling really high vibe. So I hope you'll join me. It's coming up. If you can sign up for it on my website. Like I said, we do it once a month. The next one is coming up, I think, next week, and it's always on a Sunday. And the sign up is on my webpage, which is anntucker.com. You'll see a Work With Me tab at the top, and you just click on Work With Me, and then you'll see Peace Bathing in there. So I hope you'll join me. All right, take a breath, and let's go ahead and listen to the channeling. Blessed ones, I am with you once again. We are speaking again on topics that are related to your concern, things you are worried about, where I can reassure you, where I can give you a greater feeling of safety and safekeeping. There is no moment in your truth where you are unsafe. There is no moment where you can be pulled apart from the core stream of light that becomes you. For you are at one with yourself. You are in a oneness that cannot be divided. There is the soul that is you that has no counterpart, that has no second coming, that has no other significance rising somewhere else. You are an individuation alone. And as that unified source, you are unified in the same way that God is. You are a one soul spirit. And what this makes from within you is a columnar construction of illumination that cannot be divided. It is a stream, a current, a flow that has as its origination point the center of all that is. And it comes through you again and again in each moment, in each second, and cannot be divided. It is not divisible. It is one. And you are in this oneness at all times. And thus, as you are thinking about what happens in this life to the current, to the stream that you are, it is merely a flow like a river that you are moving through. It is a passageway, a doorway. It is a temporary obstruction. But like a river, you will always find your passage around, beneath, or over whatever falls before you. In the oneness of your individuated expression, there are many permutations of what you can become. You are not limited. There is not one thing that you can do. There are many things for the choosing. You are all that you've ever been, and you are yet becoming more things. There are new streams within you that emerge from the inside out. There is no external justification that enables you to become. You simply are. You are becoming from within. And what emerges from you comes from that internal state of presence. Thus, should you want something, should you wish for something, you merely need to allow it to rise up from within you. There are many things you have not yet experienced, many new ways of becoming, new truths you have not yet explored. Is every path available to you? With circumspection, I would say yes, for you are an individuated dialogue with Source itself. And you have come to become many things, and you have sheltered yourself in specific ways and guided yourself along certain pathways, which have created a sense of who you are, a core stream of light that is filtered into specific colors, if you will. And those colors have taken shape, and those shapes have reinforced themselves. Thus, today, as you stand, as you are, as you breathe, you are becoming something that you think about yourself. You are becoming what you are into a haven of existence, which is what we will call the body, which has taken on an expression that reflects what you are. And these categories within which you have found yourselves are defined from within, but they have become permeated throughout your existence, for they have come upon themselves and upon themselves again and again. You have taken many, many forms through many, many lifetimes, but in each of those, there are particular elements of who you are that you have carried with you, for you, to create an increasingly individuated experience of who you are. Thus, the becoming that you are today is an expression that has been carefully formulated from within. And it is not all things. It is specific things. It is what you have specified, what you have valued, what you have triumphed over, and what you have desired to become. Thus, can you become anything? Yes, within reason. What will not violate the truths which you've already generated? What will work in accordance with the truth which you have cultivated? Thus you have created and taken certain pathways which have pointed you in certain directions. In other words, if you are currently not on the path of doing certain professions, it is difficult later in life to begin choosing those professions. It is something that you can perhaps aspire to, that you can work on, that you can develop, but certain pathways and certain doorways close as you move through a lifetime. And this is all right. You become something new, you become something else, and that something else is individuated further and further. However, from the place that you are standing, the doorways that open before you are truly infinite. There are many passageways that you have not even yet considered, and there are limitations which are not your truth, but have been left behind by other experiences. And I would encourage yourselves, as you are whispering forward what is your tomorrow, to allow your breath to incorporate something more beautiful than you have been asking for. to extend yourself an olive branch back to your current self and offer something far more enlightening, a greater breeze of your own becoming. For there are ways of living that you have not yet explored that would be of benefit. And what is in your way? What is the persistent obligation, the calloused wound, the reluctance that is generated by fear? I would say when you come to embrace the truth of what you are as a stream of unified presence that cannot be divided from itself, there is nothing and no one that can interrupt you, that can stop you. Only self, for you are one and one cannot be divided. There is nothing to fear. In this life, what obligations, what truths you stumble upon, what unforgiving moments you swim within, all of these are temporary. And within the pause of a breath, you can move through them. And I would suggest for the self that to embrace the creative, divine treasure within your heart, the power to generate your own reality, you simply need to choose. To focus upon the thought and the next thought of your own becoming, to embrace what can be your new reality, what is adjacent to where you are that would be an improvement, what would catapult you into a finer dialogue with reality. These choices are available to you. Embrace them. There's nothing to fear. The world, yes, is chaotic, and this is by design and is divinely inspired. For the pathway forward must move through what obstacles are before it, but it is temporary. It is a passageway, and you will move through it. Therefore, I say choose a passage through this chaos that is of benefit to you. Choose a pathway which is graceful, which is easy and triumphant, which embraces the whole of you, which respects the illuminative power that you are generating, and which embraces the life that forms around you. And this is all. And in so doing, fear dissolves. Have this understanding that you are one, and one is divisible by itself. I love you. I say blessings and goodbye. So beautiful, right? Absolutely beautiful message. And I mean, it's like in the gentlest way, I think she gives us a good butt kicking. Like in the kindest way, like she's saying and we know some of this, there's Esther Hicks has been saying for a long time, you create your own reality and The Secret. And I mean, we know some of this, but I feel like the way she's explaining it to us, it helps us to understand why it's true. And it helps us to recognize the pathway to take advantage of who we really are, right? What it means that, that it is, I really like this concept of adjacency, that this idea that we can create anything, but I think where we run, where we get grounded, where we have trouble is, I think maybe you have heard of the story about like Jim Carrey wanting to become an actor, and he took a check and wrote it, made a fake check to himself and pasted it on his ceiling, and it said some crazy number of money he wanted to be paid, and it's this incredible, so $8 million, I don't know what it was, some huge number that he put up, and he put up on a single so he would look at it every morning. And that's an amazing story. But not all of us can embody $8 million. We can't be yeah, let me just swim in that $8 million. There's some part of us that's that just disagrees with it. That's just that's not real. That's not possible. So what she's saying is why don't instead look for something that is right adjacent to where you are, that's right next door, that feels in your body like it could be true. and you could start with something as small as, okay, when I go out today, I'm going to hit all the green lights, or at least more green lights than not. You know what I mean? It's going to be smooth when I get there. I'm going to find the parking spot. I'm going to, that all of my interactions are going to be joyful today. Whatever it is, or it could be something bigger. It could be that you're going to have money come into your life that you didn't know where it came from. And leave it open for how much it is. Just leave it open to the idea that you're going to receive money. And it could be that day you go out and you find a quarter on the ground and you're like, score, I did it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't matter how much. The point is that you're open to it and you can build on that. So this concept of adjacency, I think is really, really cool, because the point is not the quarter and it's not the $1 million. Like, we all die. And when Jim Carrey is dead, he's not going to be able to do anything with that $8 million. It's like gone, it's not the real thing. What's real is that we have the belief in ourselves that we are creators. Like, that's the goal. That's the whole point of it. So it doesn't matter if you're making, I guess it would be nice to make the 8 million, but if you make a quarter, if you create a quarter out of thin air, that counts. Like, that's awesome. And it's a stepping stone to anything else. So anyways, I think there's so many layers, actually, as always in this message, that I'm really excited to go through it together and kind of pull it apart and take in everything that we can. Let's see here. And this month's peace bathing really helps. Oh, good, Bridget. I'm so glad. And then Anna's asking, how are we doing in regards to our timeline? Are we still on the same timeline as last summer? So here's an interesting thing is, I know that there's a lot of different ways to refer to where we are, and the term timeline is used to kind of describe, am I getting into alignment with the highest and best options for me? Am I creating a reality in line with my highest and best? But I don't tend to use the word timeline, because what the angels has started talking about way back in 2020, and what Isla has said, is that when we move to our higher state of consciousness, we will be freed from time. So the whole concept of timeline, I feel like it throws me, because in the future we will be freed from time. And what that means is that we will no longer be thinking in the past and the future. We will be super focused on the now moment, that it'll be easy. No more monkey mind. We will be super focused in the now. So I don't tend to think in terms of timelines, and not to disagree with anybody else that's out there. That's why I like to explain the reason why I don't like that. It's just language. It's all language. But so the way I would interpret, I think what you're asking is am I right now energetically choosing my highest and best expression? Am I moving into alignment with, and there really is a reality shift. There's a new state of consciousness that's opening and available to us. And as Isla has said, we're kind of stretching in and out of it as we're moving through our healing, moving through our wounding, as we're starting to move into it. But there will come a moment when things shift, when enough of humanity has moved into that higher vibration, where there's enough of us to co-create a reality, right? It takes several of us together, many of us together. It's like we're weaving a tapestry, and our energies have to align, and then it gels, and it's like, hey, we're having a shared experience, and ta-da, we have a new reality. So we're trying to get there. We are relying on one another to do it. And and it's not all or nothing. Every minute we spend in that vibration, we're adding another thread to the tapestry. So where are we right now in that process? What Isla has said is that we made major headway in just recently, like the end of last year. There was a major moment when it was sort of like the new reality, like the first threads came into being, and then since then we've been increasingly able. And I myself have noticed that I've had, like, in the whole of my life, I only had a handful of truly telepathic moments, and they were all with my daughter, where she sent me images or words, and I heard things from her where she wasn't there and stuff like that, and audibly heard things from her. But in the last year, I've had 5 or 6 extremely undeniable telepathic moments. So that's a 6x, right? Like in terms of 1 year. So massive increase. So to me, I see that as being, and Isla said, because I asked, I'm like, how come I can't sustain it? Why is it that I can do it and then it goes away? And she says, I'm stretching, that I'm moving in and out of that frequency, that I can't sustain it because the earth can't sustain it yet. There has to be enough of us. And that's the flash of light that will boost us there. So what I would say is that are you on the timeline, as they would call it, the timeline, to get into that new reality? You're here, right? You know what I mean? That you're doing the work. And so yes, absolutely. Like, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to be totally healed. The more we heal, the better, because when we get to that new reality, I think of every little wound we heal as like something we've learned about ourselves. It's a chapter of our own self that we've read. And so it's like we're doing our homework. We're trying to get as much out of that book of self as we possibly can, because that is the journey that we've been on. We've been on the journey of learning about ourselves. And so we're trying to read, we're cramming right now, trying to read as much of the book as we can. Because when we shift to the new frequency, we don't get to take the book with us. We leave karma behind. And we will no longer get to read. We won't even get to know what's in those last chapters. And all we get to take with us is what we've read. And then what we've read becomes the building blocks with which we get to create in the new reality. So there could be a person who was like, I'm going to lock myself in a cave this entire lifetime, and I'm not going to have any negative experiences. I'm just going to live in my bliss, and I'm just going to be happy all the time, but I'm going to stay super high vibe so I can switch to the higher vibration. I would say, good on you. Yep, you can absolutely switch. But when you get there, you will have no Legos to build with. That you will have no lessons that you learned. You won't have any chapters that you read. You'll just be like creating the same flower over and over again. It'll be like, like you want to get as much, like wring the life out of this time period, learn as much as you can through healing, integrating as much as we can. But in terms of making the shift, it's really about being open and receptive to that higher frequency. And I think it's a big part of it is awareness. And you guys are here, you are immersed in learning about this stuff and thinking about this stuff. And that's what it takes. So I would say yes. And you are if we're going to call it a timeline, and like I said, I prefer another word because of the word time in there throws me, because I know the big part about it is we will be freed from all time, which is amazing. But thank you for asking. Here we go. There you see my second peace bathing. I was seriously at peace for a solid 2 weeks without redoing while chaos was surrounding me. I was shocked. Jennifer, that is so cool. Wow. I love to hear that. That's amazing. That is so, so awesome. So, okay. So let's go ahead and break down the message if you are ready. Starting with the beginning here. She says, blessed ones, I am with you once again. We are speaking again on topics that are related to your concern, things you're worried about, where I can reassure you, where I can give you a greater feeling of safety and safekeeping. So here's something that just occurred to me that I think is like, why is it that she gets like once a week to talk to us, And so why is she choosing in this one to focus on this topic? Like there's no accidents. And I had a really interesting dream the other day that was really out of character for me. And I think in the dream, she was trying to show me like the most important thing that I need to be focused on right now, which is my thoughts. Like the most important thing I need to be noticing is I need to have my thoughts. I need to really notice any negative thoughts I have, and I need to work on those and address them. Think of each one as like a wound. And so I do a negative thought journal where I write, if I have a negative thought, I write it down. And then at the end of the day, I kind of look through and see, is there any trends or whatever? But if I can have a day with no negative thoughts, then I know I am in business. But I had a dream showing me that why this was so critical. So in the dream, I am, I'm on a bed, which is like related to, it's a spiritual dream. Beds are about spirit, and there's a woman and a man, and the man is sitting on a stool, and he's supposed to be sharing some information with me and the other woman. And then he notices that there's other people in the room across the way. There's a bunch of other people. And all of a sudden he turns to them and he's kind of pontificating and sharing in a kind of a way. And it's very ego involved. And I find myself slipping into judgment. I'm thinking, he's not here in service. He's kind of showing off and it's kind of about, he's making it about himself, right? I have this thought he's making, and that takes away from the value of what he's teaching. So I'm thinking that in my head. And then he invites the other woman who was also sitting on the bed, invites her to stand next to him. And then all of a sudden, without asking her, he grabs her head and starts demonstrating I know this is a random dream, starts demonstrating martial arts moves on her head, like moving her this way, that way. But without asking her, right? He's not hurting her, but it's not comfortable looking. And he didn't ask. And I say out loud in the dream, I would have fought if he did that to me, I would have fought it. And as soon as I say I would fight it, immediately I'm the one and he's doing it to me and I'm resisting. And we're like in this locked battle where I'm like fighting it and he's holding my head. So the point of the dream, even though, and it was a very out of character dream for me, but it was a really important dream because it's showing you that the rapidity with which we will be able to create things. It is showing me the minute I thought about resistance, boom, there was no lag. It was instant. Right? And the minute it's like it was really trying to show me that any thoughts about judgment, any thoughts about resistance will be, and this is as we're moving into higher and higher frequencies, and we become freed from time. Time has been this wonderful. Time has been really tough on us, but time has also created lag, where we can think about things and then it won't create for a while, right? So we have this lovely period where we can like have our negative thoughts and they don't necessarily show up. You can think about dragons and they're not going to all of a sudden come out of your closet. But what it's showing me is time is going away, that we won't be living inside of time in the same way anymore. So will our thoughts become increasingly generative in the now moment? So if I have a negative thought, am I manifesting that really quickly? And that's, I think, what the dream is showing me. And that's, I think, why they've been so on me about clean up your thoughts, clean up your thoughts. That I got to be and it's not easy, you guys. I will tell you. And I will have days when I'm in a really good space and I'm like, I have no negative thoughts and I'm like dancing when that happens. But then I'll have other days where I get stuck into something gets me. And then if I write it down, I become conscious and then I can become aware of it. One of the tricks I've been using is I will put on like really nice, peaceful music that doesn't have words in it. And it almost serves like a grounding rod for my thoughts. Like it almost like a grounding rod for my vibration, where I find that if I've got this kind of really soft background music, my monkey mind doesn't go wah, wah, wah all over the place. And it keeps me just from a happy place. It's almost like the music, if I put on really happy, uplifting music, it keeps me feeling happy and uplifted, and my thoughts are happy and uplifted. So I've been using that just kind of quiet in the background as a way of kind of keeping my thoughts. It's like it guides, does that make sense? It kind of guides my thoughts a little bit and keeps me in a higher vibe. So that is something that's been working really well for me. But the thought journal is where it's at. So I think, why is it that she's choosing to talk about this idea of like, hey, you've got concerns, you've got worries, because our vibe is going up. And the last thing we want to do is to be in our fear and be in our worry and start generating stuff that we don't want. So anyway, so that's, I think really important to be aware of, and not to create fear that every time you have a bad thought and you're like, oh no, you know what I mean? Like, we still have time, like we've got plenty of time, but now is the time to work on this. Now is the time for us to be noticing it, and really like our thoughts is like one of the major frontiers, I think, right now for our work to do on ourselves. So, okay, she says, next paragraph, she says, there is no moment in your truth where you are unsafe. There is no moment where you can be pulled apart from the core stream of light that becomes you, for you are at one with yourself. You are in a oneness that cannot be divided. And I love this perspective she's sharing. I'm going to go on to the next paragraph. She says, there is the soul that is you that has no, there is the soul that is you that has no counterpart, that has no second coming, that has no other significance rising somewhere else. You are an individuation alone. And as that unified source, you are unified in the same way that God is. You are a one soul spirit. So this to me was one of those super deep and amazing concepts, is that if we are a one soul, like a one soul spirit, and if we are truly unified, then we are what God is, that God is unified. And we know that we have lots of selves within us, like we have our inner child, we have that, we have all these different wounded parts of ourselves, but where are they? They're all inside of us. Just like everything that exists that we know is part of God, that all of God is within God. So God is a unified source, like God is one. It's in everything in the universe is part of God. So God can't be divided from himself. Or I use him. If you have a different word for God, please use it. I refer to God as a he because it's comfortable for me, but I don't perceive God as a gendered presence. I just like to say that because people ask. It's just comfortable for me to say God and he because I always have. But please substitute your preferred word and pronouns. So anyways, so this idea that we are unified, that we come into this whole equation completely whole, and that nothing can split us or divide us or lessen us. It doesn't matter what happens to us. Sometimes I think it feels when we have our trauma that people take something from us. That it's like if you, for example, that your house got broken into, and you feel like someone, not only did they steal your stuff, they stole your sense of peace. They stole your sense of safety. They changed how home feels, right? You feel like they robbed more than stuff. They robbed a piece of you. And what Isla is saying is that can't happen. that no one can divide you or take a chunk of you or take a piece of you, that they can't. You are, everything that is part of you is within you. So I love this idea in the same way. And the only way that we can relate to it, I think, is to think about God, that it's ridiculous to think that somebody can steal a part of God, because everything's inside God. So it's still God. And that's what we are. So amazing way to think about this. And also interesting to think that we are each that. So yes, we live inside of God, but each of us is like, and Isla has told us that we all have the potential to become our own universe. So we will become like Isla and like God, that we will be able to generate a universe inside of us. And that universe that we create will be whole and complete, and everything in it will be part of what we are. And that all of that will then exist inside of God. Pretty amazing, huh? So yeah, really cool. So next paragraph, she says, and what this makes from within you is a columnar construction of illumination. So like a column of light, right? That cannot be divided. It is a stream, a current, a flow that has as its origination point the center of all that is. So in other words, we think of ourselves as being this physical, like we touch ourselves and we think that we are sort of a thing, right, that exists, but we are in fact waveform, that we are constant movement, and we are actually a wave, right, a stream, a current, a flow. And it comes right from the center of all that is, and it comes through you again and again in each moment, in each second, and cannot be divided. So this waveform, it's almost like, if you look at a movie, like a film, if you look at the old film of a movie and you see the images one after another, and it looks like separate images, but when you play it all together, it forms motion, it makes a movie. So if you imagine that we are like that every nanosecond is a wave that comes from source, that we ride, it's energy that then we project into this form. But if you were to stretch out time down to the extreme amount, there might be blank spots where we disappear, where the wave is like we're flashing, like we're like, it's like I'm on, I'm off, I'm on, I'm off. But we only experience it as one continuous vision because time is moving faster than that. So we are in fact this waveform that rises and falls, rises and falls, rises and falls, and there are blank spots, which is really cool. If you could slow down time, you could disappear. Which is a kind of a cool concept. But we are, in fact, we rise and flow like a wave. But that wave cannot be divided. It is a complete and whole unit, sort of like how everything in the universe seems to be able to split down to its smallest unit of existence. And we are that. We are split down to the smallest unit of God, and so we can't be separated any further. We're like the end of the line, and we've reached that place of maximum separation, and that is who we are. So we're a one solidified, or not solidified, a one soul spirit. So, and then she says, and that, so we are a stream, a current, a flow that has as its origination point the center of all that is, and it comes through you again and again, in each moment, in each second, and cannot be divided. It is not divisible. It is one, and you are in this oneness at all times. Next paragraph. And thus, as you are thinking about what happens in this life to the current, to the stream that you are, it is merely a flow like a river that you are moving through. It is a passageway, a doorway. It is a temporary obstruction. But like a river, you will always find your passage around, beneath, or over whatever falls before you. So nothing can block you. Nothing can stop you. Nothing can get in your way. That it might divert your flow, right? But you will eventually flow around it, and you'll find, just like water, if you try to stop water, it'll find its way around. It'll eventually back up and overflow, and you can't stop it. It's coming. And that's us. So, and I love this idea, the visual of whatever obstacles we run into our life as a doorway, because the concept of a doorway, yeah, you got to go through it, but a doorway is only like this thick, right? You're through it and you're on the other side. So yeah, you can go through temporary constrictions, but then you move through it. So then she says, in the oneness of your individuated expression, there are many permutations of what you can become. You are not limited. There is not one thing that you can, there's not one thing that you can do. There are many things for the choosing. You are all that you've ever been, and you are yet becoming more things. There are new streams within you that emerge from the inside out. And I like the way that she describes it. She says, yes, we were everything we've ever been, but you are becoming more things. So it's like, it doesn't matter if you are 89 right now, that you are still becoming more things right now. You have the option to become something new tomorrow. I thought it was fascinating when at the end of my dad's life, he, as my stepdad, but I call him dad because he raised me. And he in his last 2 years of life, it was during COVID, and he had all kinds of health stuff going on. He couldn't go out. He was pretty limited. His world was shrinking. And but he as he got older, he started to open up to what I do, and it was pretty awesome, and we had some really cool conversations. And he shared his dreams with me, and what fascinated me is, here is this guy, he's got shingles, he's got bad knees, he's got everything going on, he can't go outside, and all his dreams were about spiritual leadership. All of his dreams were like, get your butt out there and be a leader. And I'm like, he's like exhausted by 10 a.m. And the dreams are like, go lead. And it just shows, it's like, yeah, we have infinite capacity in every moment. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. There are still ways, still ways he could have reached out. He could have made connections, that he had something to give, is what I'm trying to say. Even in that state, in the last years of his life, he had something to give that was what was dammed up inside of him and that didn't have an outlet. So yeah, amazing. So next paragraph, she says, there is no external justification that enables you to become. You simply are. And I think about that, the end of the last paragraph, she says, there are new streams within you that emerge from the inside out. And then she says, there are no external justifications that enable you to become. And so how many of you can relate to the wound, especially as you, like I remember in my 20s, and I talk with my daughter about this, and I think it's a really common feeling as you're sort of getting started in the world, and it feels like you feel like you want to know if there is a place in the world for you. It feels like, gosh, it's so hard to get a place in the world. And you wonder, like, is someone going to make space for me? It feels like all the good stuff is already taken, and how will you ever be able to carve out? Will people make space for you? And what I love about this is that she's saying that it doesn't work that way. Right? That there is no external justification that enables you to become. There's no one that has the keys to the castle who gets to decide if there's space for you. That you got the body, you're here. Space has been made. The only space that needed to be made was you needed to be given a body, and that's it. So you got space and you're here. And then from inside that body, it's like the world is not finite. The earth seems finite. We think of it as a finite thing. We think of that there's only so much to go around. Not true. That we can generate whatever we want from inside of ourselves. So one of the proofs of this is, we might think that resources are limited. Like my kids talk a lot about how, in my area where I live, real estate has become really, really expensive, and they feel like they missed the boat. You know what I mean? That it's like they're coming in, the younger generation, and, all the good jobs are taken, all the good houses are taken, everything's taken. And the interesting thing is that, how is it that new is created? And I would say that we're right in the middle of it right now, that it happens with what we had, like, for example, in the Industrial Revolution, people were super, super scared when weaving machines were introduced. And people were super concerned that they would take away all the jobs of all the weavers, because weaving used to happen in the home. And they were like, oh my gosh, these machines are coming in and there will be no more jobs and all of our economies will stink and everybody, and their worlds will contract. But in fact, what happened is that having those jobs mechanized, become machines, it created so much more cloth, and the cloth generated way more jobs. Right? Is that it sped things up, is what it did. It made it faster. And it's just like anything, when you make it faster, energy moves faster and it generates more opportunity. So here we are at the beginning of AI, and I know a lot of people are really worried about it's going to replace all these jobs. And if you look at throughout history, every single time we've had a major revolution in terms of like the Industrial Revolution and all the things before that, where we had major technology that came and transformed. Yeah, there was some jobs that went away, but 5x new jobs were created because energy moved faster. And so we are on the brink of that happening with AI. And it's fire horse energy, right? It's coming in. We are right on the brink of major technological innovations that are going to speed up existence. And I know that's a little terrifying for those of us that are still like, how do I use my iPhone? But it'll get more intuitive. It will get more intuitive as time goes on. So it'll get easier as time goes on. But the point is that there's no scarcity, that there's no moment that stuff has run out, because energy can move faster. And how does energy move faster? We get out of the way. We have less and less resistance. The less resistance we have, the faster energy moves, the more abundance there is, the more of everything there is for everyone. And so that's where we're going to. So there's no reason why anybody has to make space for you, because you could just generate a whole new world from inside of you, and you're not taking it away from anyone else. If one of you wants to do that Jim Carrey thing and manifest $10 million from your ceiling and looking at a check, you're not taking $10 million from someone else. You're generating it from inside of you. So go for it. That's what I say. Go for it with no guilt. Live your life. But the point is that there's no one outside of you that needs to give you permission for anything to exist. No one needs to give you permission to exist. So, and then she says, you simply are. You are becoming from within, and what emerges from you comes from that internal state of presence. Thus, should you want something, should you wish for something, you merely need to allow it to rise up from within you. There are many things you have not yet experienced, many new ways of becoming, new truths you have not yet explored. Is every path available to you? With circumspection, I would say yes. And circumspection, I think that's just like, yes, with just like a couple caveats, like everything with a couple caveats. She says, for you are an individuated dialogue with Source itself, and you have come to become many things, and you have sheltered yourself in specific ways and guided yourself along certain pathways, which have created a sense of who you are, a core stream of light that is filtered into specific colors, if you will, and those colors have taken shape. And those shapes have reinforced themselves. So this really speaks to that concept of that we create an identity for ourselves. We think of ourselves in a particular way, and we develop beliefs about what we're capable of and what's possible. And that then creates a reality that we manifest that into presence. So here's something really interesting. Is there was, I can't remember if this was a study that happened. I read about it. It was years ago. I read about this, but there were a group of hotel maids that they like study, and they asked a bunch of hotel maids, like, do they exercise? They filled out like forms like, how healthy are you? Do you exercise? And most of the maids said no, that they didn't have time. They never exercise. They have no time for exercise. And then when they met with them, they showed the maids how many calories vacuuming burns and how many calories making a bed burns. And they showed them the numbers, right? Show them, this is how many calories you're burning doing your job. And then what was fascinating is that a huge, significant proportion of the maids lost weight after learning this. They didn't change anything, right? They just began to think of what they were doing as exercise, and their body manifested weight loss. Isn't that amazing? So they became fit because they believed it was possible. And it was in the numbers. They showed, and there was nothing else they changed. All they did was started to understand that, and thought about, oh, I'm making the bed, I'm burning calories, right? And they opened the doorway to those calories being burned. Pretty cool, huh? So this is that idea that we come up with, right? That we filter our light into specific colors, and then we decide, hey, I'm a yellow person. This is who I am. I can't change. I'm yellow. And then everything I make is going to start forming. That color is going to take shape, and it's going to become things that are physical. And the more physical and enduring it is, the more it feels like I can't change it. But the truth is, we can change. It's literally from the inside out. So I can become purple if I want to. So, okay. So thus, today, as you stand, as you are, as you breathe, you are becoming something that you think about yourself. I love that line. You're becoming what you think about yourself. So, and I've been experimenting with this. So I've been thinking about, like, I have all this energy moving into my 6th house of health, and I want to put up my sail, and I want to catch that wind, right? I want to be healthy. I want to be as healthy as I can be. And so I've been focusing and thinking about the times of my life and trying to identify with the times of my life when I was my most fit, when I was my strongest and my most fit. And when I think about myself, I'm trying to imagine myself and those and I can think about specific windows of my life when I was like, I was working out a ton right there. I remember there was one of them was like I was, and someone I was young, like when I was 12, I went to this beach camp and I was like at the beach every single day and swimming and doing everything. And I was like, I would fall into my mom's car when she picked me up and fall asleep because I'd been so active. But I was like a health champ at that point. I came back and started school and I like won the record for the mile. I was like super fit. And I think about those moments in my life when I was like my healthiest, and I'm trying to embody that as my definition of who I am. And what I notice is that when I am that version of myself, I make different choices. So is it all energy, or does that energy then manifest itself into reality? I find that I think more about being active, that I'm making more space in my life for being active because it feels like that's who I am. I'm an active person. This is what I do. So it's like, it's anyways, this is how I'm playing with this concept. Like I said, I'm really focused on my thoughts right now because I'm recognizing that, as she said, Rihar, you are becoming something that you think about yourself. So what an amazing exercise it would be to do an inventory of what are the things you tell yourself about yourself. Right? I always joke around that I'm terrible at calendaring, and I need to stop saying that. Even though I can't not say that, I need to keep Wendy around. Like, Wendy, thank you, Wendy. Thank you very much. So, but I need to not say that because I'm creating more of it. So I need to become conscious of the areas where, if I care, if it's important to me, like I've made making an effort to never be late. Making an effort and that is a choice. If I make that important to me, I can be on time. Of course I can. And so I'm trying to make an effort. And I've been doing that this past year where, because it was a thing in my family and I wasn't that late. I'd show up like 5 minutes late when I would go meet my son and my mom for lunch or whatever. But I didn't like them give me a hard time about it. So I thought, well, I'm going to show you. So I made a point that I was always there, and every single time I'm like there before them every time. And it's a choice I'm making that I am not going to be the late. I'm not going to do that. And so some of it is action that we're taking, but the thoughts are where it starts. It's the choice. And she gets into that here. The choice is really important. So you are becoming something that you think about yourself. You are becoming what you are into a haven of existence, which we will call the body. Isn't that a beautiful way to talk about the body? A haven of existence, which we will call the body, which has taken on an expression that reflects what you are. And these categories within which you have found yourselves are defined from within, but they have become permeated throughout your existence, for they have come upon themselves and upon themselves again and again. So the way I see this is that it's like a constant reminder that we think something, and then we think it enough that we actually create it, and then we see it everywhere in our world, and it keeps reminding us because we keep seeing it over and over and over again. And because we see it outside of ourselves, we get confused and we think that it's coming from the outside, right? Rather than recognizing that I'm creating being late, I assume, well, it's just because I'm so busy. It's just because I have all these last minute things I have to do that being late is something I can't help. No, I generated that. I created that, and I have the choice to undo it and do it differently. But we get this confusion because we think it enough, we create it in reality, and it becomes physical, and we think the physical thing is what's creating the experience, and it's not. It's always us. So we have to kind of recognize just because it's in your reality doesn't mean it has to be true. All right, you've taken many, many forms through many, many lifetimes, but in each of those, there are particular elements of who you are that you've carried with you, for you, to create an increasingly individuated experience of who you are. Thus, the becoming that you are today is an expression that has been carefully formulated from within. And it is not all things. It is specific things. It is what you have specified, what you have valued, what you have triumphed over, what you have desired to become. Thus, can you be anything? Yes, within reason. So that's the circumspection, is that you can be anything except that we have become highly individuated expressions of God, is what we are. We are like at the end of the line of God creation, because we are at the space where we're about to kind of turn around and become unified again. So we are as individuated as we're going to get. So we are at the space right now where we have tried to get as much clarity about who we are. And that means there's a lot of things that we've decided we are not. So, and that's where we are right now. So can you be anything? Yes, as long as it doesn't violate the ways that we've created ourselves, as long as we don't decide that we're gonna go against our nature. So she says, so can you become anything? Yes, within reason. What will not violate the truths which you've already generated? What will work in accordance with the truth which you've cultivated? So for example, one of the truths I've cultivated for myself, and this shows up in my astrology, is that integrity is a really important part of who I am. Like it's a major building block of my value system. And so could I be anything as long as it doesn't feel out of integrity for me, right? That's a big thing, is could I do something as long as it doesn't feel like I'm trying to be someone I'm not, right? That I can't do. And so that is a truth that I won't violate, but that still leaves loads of opportunity, right? There's loads of stuff I could do that feel like a truthful expression of myself. So, but everybody's going to have a different definition of that. Some people have chosen to define themselves as being like, amazingly loving. And then that means you can't do something that doesn't come from a place of love. Some people have defined themselves as incredibly giving. And so you wouldn't be able to do something that felt like it came from a place of selfishness, So there's these things that we have kind of divined or decided as being core parts of our existence, of who we are as a person, as the soul that we want to express. And so those are the pieces that kind of need to stay in place. Then she says, thus you have created and taken certain pathways which have pointed you in certain directions. In other words, if you are currently not on the path of doing certain professions, it is difficult later in life to begin choosing those professions. If it is something that you perhaps aspire to, she says it is something that you can perhaps aspire to, that you can work on, that you can develop, but certain pathways and certain doorways close as you move through a lifetime, and this is all right. You become something new, you become something else, and that something else is individuated further and further. So in other words, early on, you probably decided that you weren't going to be an astronaut, and it's hard to go back now and undo that choice, but that doesn't mean you don't have infinite choices. It just means that particular choice is no longer part of the reality that you're creating. So and then you go along the pathway and you generate new possibilities from the set of options that are in front of you. She says, however, from the place that you are standing, the doorways that open before you are truly infinite. So just because you can't be an astronaut necessarily doesn't mean you don't have so many options you can't even count them, right? There's so many things you could do that are not astronaut that are amazing. She says, there are many passageways that you have not even yet considered, and there are limitations which are not yet your truth, but which have been left behind from other experiences. So in other words, there are things where we have limitations where we don't even think about it, places where we decide we can't do certain things, but it's not your truth. It's just a leftover habit, a leftover assumption. It's something you inherited from your family. It's something where you put yourself in a box that you don't need to be in. We've got lots of those. And she says, and I would encourage yourselves, as you are whispering forward what is your tomorrow, to allow your breath to incorporate something more beautiful than you've been asking for. It's gorgeous. To extend yourself an olive branch back to your current self and offer something far more enlightening, a greater breeze of your own becoming. And I think she's really asking us here to be bold and to ask for more, to expect more for ourselves and to ask for more for ourselves. She says, for there are ways of living that you have not yet explored that would be of benefit. What is in your way? What is the persistent obligation, the calloused wound, the reluctance that is generated by fear? So how come we don't go for those things or ask for those things, right? I love the persistent obligation, right? That is that thing where like, oh, well, I was gonna do that thing for myself, but I ended up having to go do all these errands for my neighbor, or I had to help this person do their thing. I had to do the family laundry. We have persistent obligations that we prioritize above ourselves, above what we want to do or how we want to change. We fill our time with things that we don't necessarily choose, but they're persistent obligations. We do them because we feel like we have to. And then she says, the other thing she says, the calloused wound, right? So that we limit ourselves and we feel like, well, this is just how I am, right? I don't have that available to me because this is just how I am. A wound that we feel is not healable, but all wounds can be healed. And then she says the reluctance that is generated by fear. So that's a big one. One of the reasons why, right, we don't allow ourselves to do things is because we're afraid. And that fear can come from the fear of failure, right? The failure of loss, of if you put yourself out there, like lots of you are interested in, and many of you are closet healers, closet channels, and you worry if you come out there and you share what you're doing that people won't, you'll lose friends, you'll lose job, you'll lose. And it's, and I will tell you, I had all those thoughts. So I get it. I totally get it. And when I came out as when I started working as a healer, I did lose my job. I had to leave. I had a good job, you guys. I had to leave it behind. But I'm so glad I did, and it's that part about integrity is I can't do something in my life. I can't do something that feels out of integrity with who I am. So yeah, so I had to make that big change. And yeah, it was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of not knowingness. But at the same time, that if I let that fear govern me, I would still be there. And my life would have turned out really different. And I would be really sad if I had died and I crossed to the other side. And they're like, hey, you could have had this amazing life as a healer in a channel, but you stayed. I would have been like, oh, darn it. So yeah, so I'm really glad, really, really glad I did. So she goes on to say, I would say when you come to embrace the truth of what you are as a stream of unified presence that cannot be divided from itself, there is nothing and no one that can interrupt you, that can stop you, only self. For you are one and one cannot be divided. There is nothing to fear. So, and it's interesting. Yeah, I think that's that idea that no matter what happens, it's just a passageway you're going through, and that nothing can actually take you away from yourself or take any part of you that you don't give away consciously. And you can always take it back. You can always reclaim it. It never actually left you. You just gave someone authority or control over that part of yourself. Next paragraph. In this life, what obligations, what truths you stumble upon, what unforgiving moments you swim within, all of these are temporary. And within the pause of a breath, you can move through them. And she goes on to say, and I would suggest for the self that to embrace the creative divine treasure within your heart, the power to generate your own reality, you simply need to choose. And this is the part where she gets to the choosing, that it's a conscious choice to do it differently, to show up different, like me and being late, and consciously choosing, okay, I don't want to do that. I want to show up differently. I want to be on time all the time when I can, like barring emergencies. I want to be on the time all the time. And she says to focus upon the thought and the next thought of your own becoming, to embrace what can be your new reality. What is adjacent to where you are that would be an improvement? What would catapult you into a finer dialogue with reality? These choices are available to you. Embrace them. And again, she's focusing on the thought, to focus upon the thought, right? So this is what are we holding, thinking about in our mind as we think about ourselves? Oh, something's going on here with the screen. I see. Is everybody else seeing that too? Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Bev, I need you to stop.
How is that happening?
I'm trying to get it. Bev D. Oh, God.
Okay, thank you. That was wild. How did that happen? Something exciting. You never know it's going to happen. Okay, so then she goes on to say, where was it? It was here. So again, the focus on our thought. And then I really like the idea of the adjacent, thinking about what's adjacent. So if it feels like too much of a stretch, go for something that feels possible, that feels attainable, and start there and start to prove to yourself that you have this capacity, right? And that's more important than, you don't have to, it's like not go big, go home. It's more the energy. It takes just as much work to generate a quarter as it does to generate $1 million, but we have less resistance to generating the quarter. So if you can generate the quarter, you can embrace that this is your truth, and that opens the door for you to generate anything. So go to the place where you have no resistance, right? And recognize that the skill is the same, that you're creating something from nothing. So then she says, there is nothing to fear. The world, yes, is chaotic, and this is by design. And it is divinely inspired, for the pathway forward must move through what obstacles are before it. But it is temporary. It is a passageway, and you will move through it. Therefore, I say, choose a passage through this chaos that is of benefit to you. Choose a pathway. which is graceful, which is easy and triumphant, which embraces the whole of you, which respects the illuminative power that you are generating, and which embraces the life that forms around you. And this is all. And in so doing, fear dissolves. So, and the two things here I want to point out is she says, she says, choose a pathway which respects the illuminative power that you are generating. So that power is the power of the divine that flows through us. So choose a path that respects the fact that you are a spark of the divine. So who is supposed to be respecting it? We are. Right? We need to respect that we are the divine. We have to respect the divine within us. And when we discount ourselves and when we believe we can't, we are not respecting that gift, which we all contain, which is the ability to create a universe. If we can create a universe, we can certainly create a quarter, you guys. So we can create a whole life. We do. We create our whole life. It's just unconscious. But we can consciously choose to create as well. So she keeps using that word choose a passageway, choose a path. And then do it by mastering our thoughts. So then she says, choose, so you choose a path which respects the illuminative power that you are generating and which embraces the life that forms around you. So this is another, she just mentions it here, but this is one of the key points that came up in previous channelings. There was a couple weeks, several months ago where every message was about this idea of embrace what is. It was this concept that embracing the life we created they called it before loving what is. And what that does is it releases our resistance to reality. That if you look out in your world and you're focused on all the things you dislike, then we're putting ourselves, like my dream where I dreamt about the resistance, it puts us in resistance to our reality. And that then prevents us from it puts us in a lock with reality. We're fighting reality, and that puts us in a tug of war with reality where we're keeping all our energy engaged with the things that we don't like. So if we can get to the state where we are loving what is, it doesn't mean you have to like what is. You can look in the world and be like, there's crazy war and I don't like it, but you can still give it love. You can say, I see the war and I give it love. I understand this is an expression that humanity is moving through. This is just humanity having a tantrum, and I will love it. I will give it love. Doesn't mean I have to like it. I will give it love. And this is loving what is. And when we move to that different frequency, rather than fighting it, we are giving it love. Think about how different that feels in the body, right? One is resistance, where you're dug in and you're pushing, which puts a whole lot of energy towards the thing you're resisting, versus loving it softens the body. No more energy is going to the thing. You're just at peace with it. You're just loving it. You're allowing it. You're understanding it will run its course. It's a passageway. We will move through it. And what that does is it frees up all your energy to create something better. So this concept, embrace the life that forms around you. Even if you're like, okay, yeah, I want to create something different, but my current life has these problems, that I'm not loving. And if you find yourself really in a lot of thoughts about those problems and you're really struggling with them, we are in fact developing this push and pull with those problems. So how does this show up for example, if you have health issues? I know it can be really, really tough because say, for example, if you're in chronic pain and you're like, how do I not think about this chronic pain? So what I would suggest, and this comes from, there's so many ways I've seen this show up in healing, is this idea that if you come to peace with that pain, if you can go internal and witness your pain. And so say, for example, you've got this really bad thing going on with your arm and it's just throbbing and it's like, it's constant pain. If you just take a moment, rather than being mad about the pain or fighting the pain or trying to repress the pain, instead take a moment, take a breath, and sit and go inside your mind and imagine you are sitting in the arm with the pain and just loving what is. And that doesn't mean you love that you're in pain. It means that you are giving love to the pain. And you're not fighting it any longer. And notice how the whole body relaxes and how the pain subsides. And it works like hot darn. And I'm not saying it's if you've got like genuine horrible things going on that are really, really painful, I'm not saying that this will cure them, but try it with a minor pain and you will be shocked, because it can cure a minor pain and it can really help a major pain. So it's this idea of whatever's going on in your life, that when we release our resistance, we open the pathway for new things to flow. And I do believe that even if you are in really, really chronic pain, if we can move out of resistance to that pain, whatever it is, if we can move into a state of loving what is, then it does open any pathways that are available to you that relate to healing. It opens the doorway for something new to evolve. So I feel like in all ways, this concept of noticing our thoughts, of noticing where we are focusing, and trying to stay in the present moment, trying to stay focused on positive, uplifting thoughts, and noticing where we are not doing that, not judging it, but just writing it down, and then letting and sitting with that thought and saying, where did that come from? Why am I feeling that right now? What is underneath that? Why am I feeling down on myself right now? Or why am I feeling mad right now? What's underneath it? Do I feel not seen? Do I feel like I've been disrespected? Do I feel, what is it? Why do I feel that? And it's not, it doesn't mean you're going to, like, your thoughts and feelings aren't valid, because of course they are. We just need to take a moment. If we don't acknowledge those feelings, the underlying feelings, the thoughts continue and continue and continue and continue, right? They just buzz around in your head because they're waiting to be acknowledged. So if we just write it down and take a minute and sit with it and acknowledge, oh, that's why I keep having that thought, is because I felt taken advantage of right there. And I need to sit with myself and say, oh, I'm really sorry that I abandoned myself in that moment and I allowed myself to be taken advantage of. And I let myself come to terms with that, and then the thoughts stop. So yeah. So super, super, super cool message. She finally says, she says, and she says, in so doing, as we start to accept that we have this power to create, it makes no sense to be afraid, right? Because everything we go through is a doorway that we can be passed in a moment, and we have the power within us to generate something new. So fear, just like the idea, like, does it make sense for God to be afraid? Could you imagine the idea of God being fearful? It makes zero sense, right? 0% sense, because God is infinite. God can create anything. And we are that. So fear dissolves. The more that we come to truly accept inside of ourselves that we have this capacity, even if you start with a quarter, doesn't matter, a penny, manifest a penny, whatever it is, whatever it is, it will help you to embrace this idea that you have this capability inside of you to change thought by thought, right? What is evolving in your reality. And that having that faith in yourself makes you feel, it doesn't matter how powerful, the corruption is. It doesn't matter how powerful the war is that exists in the world, but that's not your world. And you can generate a different reality from inside of you, because the world is infinite, just like you are. So she finally says, have this understanding that you are one, and one is divisible by itself. Right? So the only thing that can make you less is you, is by giving yourself away, right? The only thing that can make you less is you. Right? And she says, I love you. I say blessings and goodbye. So gorgeous. That, of course, there's so much more depth in the message, and you can listen to it on the surface, or you can spend time with it like we do and go so much deeper. And I feel like this is how we learn. Like, I feel like this is how we take it in and we let it change us, and we grow from it. So yeah, so I'm excited. So that is absolutely my frontier of growth right now, is trying to notice and be aware of my thoughts, trying to keep my thoughts. And it's not like I say, it's not like I'm a super negative person. I'm a pretty positive person, but those thoughts will be, and they'll get you. I'll have a couple days all good, and then all of a sudden I'll have one that comes in, and I'll be like, oh, there's some part of me that I have not witnessed. I need to sit with. There's something where I feel out of tune with myself, and I'll have to be. And then once I address it, the thoughts will stop. So, but so important, because we are getting closer and closer and closer to the period where time will no longer be experienced in the same way. And we will be able to generate things very, very, very quickly. So we want to be really well practiced before that comes, really well practiced at thinking about what we actually want to create, as opposed to the things that really make us mad. Thank you so much for sharing the message together, for being here, for being part of the community. I appreciate you so much. Sending you tons of love, and I will see you guys next Friday live. Bye, you guys.